Hi there, welcome to What's Happening in Brazil. Let's start with the latest news from the country.
Two former health ministers testified in the COVID investigation in the Senate, which probes the federal government's management of the pandemic. Luís Henrique Mandetta, dismissed by President Jair Bolsonaro in April 2020, said that the president's sons participated in the ministry's meetings and influenced the decisions on the pandemic. According to Mandetta, they also obstructed his plans to meet with the ambassador of China. Nelson Teich, who became minister after Mandetta and resigned less than a month later, testified that he had no autonomy in handling the pandemic. Teich attributed his resignation to divergences with the president regarding the use of chloroquine. Despite the lack of scientific evidence backing its use against COVID, Bolsonaro took up a political defense of the medication. Eduardo Pazuello, who ruled the ministry from June 2020 to March 2021, was also called for a deposition but did not show up. He claimed to be in quarantine after having contact with an infected person. On May 1st, the body of the LGBT activist Lindolfo Kosmaski was found burnt in São João do Triunfo in the state of Paraná. Lindolfo was 25 years old and had connections with the Landless Rural Workers Movement, the MST. He also ran for office as a councilman on the Workers' Party ticket. His murderers are still unknown. The MST sees the case as a hate crime motivated by homophobia. Brazil is the country where more LGBT people are killed in the world. Data from 2019 shows that every 26 hours, one LGBT person is either murdered or commits suicide due to homophobia in the country.
Undeterred by the pandemic and the social crisis provoked by COVID-19, the Brazilian government is moving forward the privatization agenda that includes strategic companies like the post office.
Over 400,000 deaths by COVID-19 were not enough to stop the federal government's privatizations in Brazil. The most recent target of the Minister of Economy, Paulo Guedes, is the largest logistic operator in the country, the post office. According to data from the company, even during the pandemic and in regions to which access is difficult, 97% of the mail deliveries were on time. That includes books and school materials for over 5,200 Brazilian cities.
A gente está fazendo os serviços essenciais, né?
We are doing all the essential services. We go everywhere. The post office has lost over 200 workers for COVID during the pandemic, and in that situation, the government is trying to accelerate the privatization of the company.
De medidas que privatizam a empresa.
Another state-owned company targeted for privatization is Eletrobras, the largest energy producer in Latin America. The agenda deepens the neoliberal project previously led by former presidents Michel Temer from 2016 to 2018 and Fernando Henrique Cardoso in the 1990s. Some economists say Brazil is going in the opposite direction of countries that manage the current crisis well.
Se nós deixarmos a economia.
If we let the economy be ruled by so-called free market forces, the results will be the aggravation of income concentration, underdevelopment, difference, and poverty, as well as less technological development. The private market does not lead these processes. The state sector does, and the literature has abundantly shown that to be true in Brazil and abroad.
No Brasil e no mundo.
Shot in the heart of the Brazilian Amazon, the documentary The Last Forest shows the routine of the Yanomami people and was a highlight at the Berlin International Film Festival.
The dreams, myths, and the daily life of the Yanomami, who have lived in the Brazilian Amazon for over 1,000 years, are the subject of the documentary The Last Forest, directed by filmmaker Luís Bolognese and written by Bolognese and the Chama Davi Copenaua. The movie was a hit at the Berlin International Film Festival. It expands the notion of documentary by blending the daily life of the village with dramatized scenes. According to the director, that was a demand of the Yanomami themselves, so that the complexity of their lives and cosmology was properly represented in the film.
Eles sonham muito, como todos nós, só que
They dream a lot, like all of us, but for them, the dream is real. The magical things that happen in the world of dreams are understood as real events. So I thought if the documentary is about the Yanomami and one of the screenwriters is a Yanomami shaman, we have to record that, show this magical universe that is part of daily life from the inside out. To do that, we built these narratives and the Yanomami performed them as actors and actresses, representing their own dreams and giving life to their myths of creation.
The film was shot in the Watoriki village in the state of Roraima. Even though this area is demarcated as an indigenous land, wildcat mining continues to advance, especially after the election of Jair Bolsonaro.
Nowadays, illegal mining in the Yanomami lands is worse than before. There are 50,000 miners, and they are moving up to the headwaters of River Uiraricoeira. There is a lot of mining holes, and that is really bad for us. The people in the village don't like it. I wanted to show the value of forest. For us, the Yanomami, the forest is worth more than gold.
Despite these problems, the Yanomami have kept their traditions. Bolognese says that the 5 weeks he and the film crew spent with the indigenous nation have changed the way they deal with time and life in general.
The Yanomami don't try to control the future too much. They are very much here and now. They do things better than us, sewing, cooking, and hunting patiently. The power of the present engendered a civilization with low levels of anxiety and people who deal with conflicts in a very serene way. I was very moved when I left the village and came back to the city. I found it difficult to reconnect with urban lifestyle. We need to learn a lot from them.
The film is now in the circuit of festivals. Starting in August, it will be available in streaming platforms with translated subtitles.
And now it's time for Brazilianism.
Sobremesa clássica de casa. Ele mesmo.
Today I'll teach you a classic dessert, an egg white pudding.
Pudim de claras. Você vai precisar.
You will need 8 egg whites and 2 cups of sugar. For the syrup, 1 cup of demerara sugar and about 1 cup and a half of water.
Menos uma xícara e meia. Eu vou começar.
I will start with the syrup. It needs to cool down before we can use it. Let's melt the sugar without the water. When the sugar is melted, add the water. It can be hot or warm.
Olha como muda o ponto.
Look at the syrup's texture after it cools down. That is what we were waiting for. I'll place the syrup in a pudding mold.
Você vai.
I'll preheat the oven at 250 degrees Celsius in high power. Whip the egg whites with the sugar until you get glossy peaks stiff enough to stand on their own. If you turn the bowl upside down, they shouldn't fall off of it. Lay the whipped egg whites with a spoon to avoid leaving air in the pudding. Use the spoon to pour them into the mold and smooth a little. Only place the egg whites in the mold when the syrup is cool. If it's warm, it will ruin the pudding. We bake the pudding in a water bath or bain-marie. Place the pudding mold into a baking sheet and pour warm water into the sheet. Take it to the oven and bake it for 10 minutes at a very high temperature. Lower the temperature and bake it for 25 or 30 more minutes.
Agora eu vou deixar esfriar.
I'll let it cool down before removing it from the mold. It will sink, as you will see.
Agora é a hora da verdade.
Now it's time to see if the pudding will break. Sometimes it happens.
Liked the show, so hit the like button and share with your friends. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to receive notifications. We will see you next week.